Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of 2025 for the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. My name is Paul Seamus Ryan. I'm Executive Director of the Campaign Finance Board. This evening, I am wearing a blue plaid shirt and a blue sport coat. I have graying hair and a little bit of a beard. I'm a white man in my 50s. I'd like to start this evening with a note on what the VAC is for some folks who might be joining our meetings for the first time, or a reminder for folks who have joined us before. The Voter Assistance Advisory Committee, the VAC for short, advises our city agency, the Campaign Finance Board, on its voter engagement efforts and recommends changes to improve New York City elections. The committee, when fully constituted, meaning there are no vacant seats, consists of 9 members appointed by different members of the city government. When appointing members of the VAC, city officials consider their experience with groups or categories of residents that are underrepresented among those who vote, and community, voter registration, civil rights, and disabled groups. With that, I'd like to welcome the members of the VAC and ask them to introduce themselves and give a visual description.
I'll go first. Good evening, everyone. My name is Christopher Malone. I am also a white male with graying hair. I'm wearing a navy blue suit with a white shirt and a light blue tie and black rim glasses. I was appointed by Mayor de Blasio in April of 2020, so I am completing, my goodness, 5th year coming up on. And so I like to call myself, I was a COVID appointee, and it's been really an honor to have served this on this body for that long, and through so many changes and so many good changes in terms of what we've seen in terms of how New Yorkers vote and some of the extraordinary measures that have been put in place and all the positive changes. I am the associate provost at Farmingdale State College. It's part of the SUNY system that's out on Long Island, and I'm also a political scientist by training. And I always look forward to these meetings. So thank you for having me, Paul, and everybody else.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Great to see such tremendous participation. Voting now is more important than ever. I'm Danielle Girard. I'm a appointee of the controller and have been on the board since 2013. I'm a civil rights lawyer for children at an organization called Children's Rights. We represent children in class action cases regarding making improvements to state systems, anywhere from Medicaid to child welfare. We also represent all the immigrant children in the United States in a settlement agreement with the federal government. I'm also an officer at an Upper West Side political club and advocate strenuously on behalf of voting rights. So thank you for having me. Oh, I'm wearing wire-rimmed glasses for the computer. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Danielle, and also Christopher. I think that does it for our VAC members, the only ones I'm seeing in my screen. So let's get started. As I said at the top of the meeting, this is the first meeting of the VAC for 2025, highlighting the work of the Campaign Finance Board and NYC Votes in the lead up to the New York City primary elections that are almost 4 months away. In June, New Yorkers will have the opportunity to vote on the citywide offices of mayor, public advocate, and comptroller, as well as borough presidents and, in some cases, their district's representative for city council. With this upcoming city election, tonight's meeting will focus on New York City's Matching Funds program, which uses public funds to match small contributions raised by candidates running for city office. The program was started in New York City in the 1980s with a matching rate of 1-to-1. Almost 40 years later, we are now able to match eligible contributions at a rate of 8-to-1, which really amplifies the impact of small dollar donations. This means that if a candidate raises $10 from an individual New York City resident, they will receive $80 in matching funds from the Campaign Finance Board for a total of $90. This program helps to support candidates across the city and has opened up new opportunities for people who may not have otherwise been able to run for office, especially women, people of color, and young people. It also creates a strong incentive for candidates to finance their campaigns by engaging average New Yorkers instead of seeking large contributions from special interests. This helps to strengthen our city's democracy and make our local government more representative of folks who live across the city. With that short summary of the program, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Alyssa Guzman, Director of Marketing and Digital Communications at the Campaign Finance Board, who will explain the results of our recent survey to get a sense of how many New Yorkers are actually aware of this public financing program. Welcome, Alyssa.
Thank you so much, Paul. So happy to be here with you all tonight. As Paul mentioned, my name is Alyssa Guzman. I am the Director of Marketing and Digital Communications here at the Campaign Finance Board. I am a Hispanic woman in her 40s. I am wearing glasses and a green and white striped shirt, and I'm in front of a branded background that is navy blue. And I will be sharing results from our matching funds survey that we ran at the very end of last year with you all today, and talking a little bit about what we learned and how we're going to apply that information going forward. Next slide, please. So, as Paul mentioned, we really do view the matching funds program as a fundamental form of engagement in elections. And our hope with this research and the subsequent ad campaigns and education materials that we're working on is that by informing New Yorkers of this program, we can increase engagement in elections in a different way that goes not beyond voting, but works in tandem with voting, that really does help underrepresented communities feel that they have power and access in the election space. Next slide. So that's why in 2025, and I feel like I've already been talking so much about matching funds this year, we are going to be talking to voters a lot about the program. And we really started with trying to find out what they know and don't know about it. And to give everybody a hint, they don't know a lot. So, our goal for all of this research throughout that will continue throughout the year is to increase positive perception of the program. So, we're setting our standards a bit higher than just more people knowing about the program. We want more people to know about the program and feel really good about what it seeks to do and that it can accomplish those goals. So we're looking for about 10% increase in positive perception. And we're going to use different tactics throughout the next couple quarters, including, and these speak to my area of expertise, but there's other units in the agency who are also working on matching funds. But for me, it's paid ads, explainer videos, and a lot of community education events. So, to get into the research, we worked in partnership with Lake Research, who, if you're not familiar, is a public research firm throughout the US with offices in New York City. So, we do like to partner with them because they have a great understanding of our target audience. And we surveyed about 800 voters to basically better understand how New Yorkers view the matching funds program today. And unintentionally, we did actually conduct this survey at a time when a lot of New Yorkers, because of current political events in New York City, were learning and hearing in the news about the matching funds program. Next slide. So next slide after that, just looking at some of the key findings. So first, we'll start with the methodology. As I said, we worked with Lake Research. We designed the survey and conducted it by landline, cell phone, and text, as I said, in December of last year. The sample voters were pulled from the voter file, so they were registered New York City voters. It was 800, and the survey was offered and conducted in Spanish, English, and Chinese, both versions of Chinese, simplified and traditional, Mandarin and Cantonese for spoken. And of course, we excluded staff and electeds from participating in the survey. And we made sure to get a balance of voters by borough, age, gender, race, party affiliation, so that we're getting a really broad look at the electorate in New York City. So the first learning will not surprise probably most of you folks here tonight, was that most of these voters were unfamiliar with the matching funds program, where we just had about 10% of those surveyed familiar with what the program was. So that's our baseline for doing all of the work that we're going to do this year. And if you look at the slide, you can go a little bit deeper into who is familiar specifically with the program. Not surprisingly, people who have donated in the past, and people who are very in tune with elections and think that elections in New York City are very fair. So the next really interesting thing that came out of the survey research was really that the more people know about the matching funds program, the better they like it. So even within the duration of the survey, which was about 20 minutes, we could change positive perception quite a bit just by telling them more about the program. So that underscored for all of us here at the Campaign Finance Board that education is one of the most important things that we need to do in our marketing efforts this year. So one of the challenges is that even though we shifted positive perception, there still wasn't a lot of intensity around the matching funds program. So people felt more positively about it, but they didn't feel passionate about it. And it is a bit of a hard thing, at least from a marketing perspective, to really get people excited about. So this isn't surprising, but it definitely poses a challenge for the agency on how to really galvanize the voting base to feel more intensely about the program. So 3 in 10 voters move toward thinking the program has a positive impact after messaging. And then some of the voters that really stood out from the research who moved a little bit more in their thinking were voters based in the Bronx, women under 50, Black women, voters under 30, and mothers. So they were swayed more toward positive impact than other demographics of voters in the survey. And this is kind of an interesting fact that I included in here. I'm not sure exactly how much it means, but voters who've lived in New York City for under 11 years move toward negative impact the most. So maybe it does have a lot to do with really feeling like New York City is your home, really feeling like you belong in this city. I just thought that was an interesting outcome, so I went ahead and included it for you all. And I do love this stat about the youth audience and how younger voters were more likely than older voters to shift toward viewing the program favorably and saying it has a positive impact on elections in New York City. This was particularly exciting for a lot of reasons. Young voters are so important to the country, but they're also one of our target audiences at the agency. So we're really excited to see this shift with the youth audience. And as we market this year, this will be one of our key target audiences for the matching funds program. Next slide, please. Okay, so then going into storytelling. Focusing on matching is much more important than participation. Again, from a marketing perspective, possibly not that surprising, but very interesting. So voters were more likely to be willing to donate, knowing that their donation would be matched versus swayed by knowing that a candidate is participating in the program. So when you think about how to talk about the program and the storytelling around it, that matching component, as we all know from different drives on PBS or NPR, the matching is a really important aspect of it that was affirmed in this survey. So just going quickly into a little bit of the messaging. Next slide here. So this is a lot of text, and I'm not going to speak to all of it, but just to give you a sense of the different topics that we put in front of this group of 800 voters. We asked them about storytelling around reducing reliance on big money, about ordinary people running for office, about the program offering more choice and more competition, how it can build community power, how it can make small donations count, how it can increase the diversity of the donor pool, how it can offer accountability, strict accountability, and how New York City really leads the way with the largest matching funds program in the country. So of all of these different messages, the ones in colors are the ones that resonated the most in the survey. And on the next slide, we'll see those isolated and bigger. So these are the messages that we are going to be using in our advertising and educational efforts throughout the year. So speaking a lot about how the program enables more people to run for office, how it reduces reliance on big money, and how it increases accountability of elected officials. And then this is another challenge for us to consider as we go about these stories that we're looking to speak to voters about. There is a lot of cynicism, especially possibly in this year more than others, but I know this always holds true for this space. There is a lot of cynicism out there. And so I think that the voters who were surveyed don't have too much optimism that the program can accomplish these three messages. So you can kind of see in the graph how people feel about the likelihood of the matching funds program to be able to do all of these different things that are highlighted here. I'm not going to read them all, but I think that's another challenge to really prove that the program is accomplishing and can accomplish these very lofty goals. And then just to show you a little bit about how we can take a really dense survey and turn it into something that's a bit more accessible, I included some of the tagline exploration that we have done recently, where we take these really complex ideas and make them a little bit catchier. So you can see some of them here. I won't read them all for you, but things like elections powered by you, matched by us, big city, small donations, huge change, donate to a more diverse democracy, New York is for everyone, running for office is too. So this is just a look into our exploration. And then just going into advertising creation. The marketing timeline for this, to give you an idea of where we are in December and January, we ran and have analyzed the survey in January and February. We have created a lot of different assets with different messages, as you saw a little bit using some of those taglines. We will start our ad campaign and education campaign in March, but in February and March, we're going to conduct a second survey before the campaign launches to better measure current sentiment of the program. Then we're going to run the campaign in March through May. And then in June, after the campaign finishes, we're going to run another survey so that we can see if we did change perception. And these surveys will be targeting a much larger audience than the 800 voters we targeted for the initial research. So we're hoping to extrapolate some more learnings from both the campaign and these surveys. And I think that's it for me.
Thanks so much, Alyssa. I'd love now to turn to our VAC members who are present, Christopher and Danielle, to invite any questions that you might have.
Danielle, do you want to go first, or would you like me to?
I actually don't have a question, but I do want to make a comment that I am often involved in the kind of work you just described, and all of the things that you have to say about it really resonate, and they really do resonate in real life. They really do resonate with real donors. And when we know that you can't run a race without funding, and you have to spend a lot of time on the phone making telephone calls, the matching fund program makes a huge difference, and people who know about it understand exactly what you said, and exactly the way you said it is the best way to reach them. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I'll just add that I managed, it feels like eons ago, but I managed a city council campaign in 2001, the first one that I was involved in. And I was a very young man and didn't know a heck of a lot, but the candidate was 24 years old or so, and we went through the campaign finance fund, and he could not have run for elected office were it not for that. And that was when I think the funds were 4-1. And so, you know, you're pulling this data, Alyssa, and the fact that there are anecdotes out there, and I know this is a big city, but you know, maybe in the campaign going forward, storytelling with qualitative narratives along with data from surveys. Just from my experience working with candidates, working with people who have gotten elected or have fallen short, but like Danielle has said, could not have even imagined running for office without this because they didn't have the means. Um, it is an equalizer. It's the great equalizer in New York City, and it works to at least get more candidates into the field. So maybe that's I don't know, maybe there's an all-star team of candidates that have run over the last several decades that you could pull together in your campaign to make its profile higher, because you have so many fans of it out there that have been in the system that could turn the spigot on for support. So, and if we could help in that way, then I'd be glad to offer my support.
I have a question or two, but I'll invite you, Alyssa, to respond maybe to Christopher and or Danielle's comments if you have a response.
Yeah, I was just gonna say thank you both for that feedback. I think that humanizing the program and sort of making it more approachable is definitely something that's very top of mind for us. So it's great hearing that story about a really young candidate being able to run because of the program. I think that's what makes it make more sense to New Yorkers. And in this campaign, there's a particular challenge because the awareness of the program is quite high with candidates or potential candidates, but extremely low with voters. So we're trying to kind of bridge that gap this year and have more voters knowing about the program and donating and contributing, as well as telling that story about how anyone can run for office in New York City. So just thank you for that. And Paul, happy to answer your questions.
No, you did an excellent job of explaining what we learned through the research and how what our messaging will be going forward based on what we've learned. And you also did a great job of explaining how we're going to measure the impact of our messaging of this advertising or messaging campaign, which is critically important. I'm wondering if you could tell us whether there is any significant messaging change or pivot that your team plans to make now based on these survey results. So maybe giving us a perspective of what we've done in past elections, how we've talked about elections, whether we've even talked about matching funds, and how that's going to be different this year.
Sure. So I think that there were a couple interesting, not necessarily pivots, but interesting distinctions in terminology that I think changed our thinking. A lot of times when we talk about the program, we talk about it in terms of increasing the diversity of candidates running for office. And while that's very true, the language that resonated with voters in this survey was more ordinary people or more people in general being able to run for office. So there were some very interesting semantic shifts that came out of the research. I know we talk a lot about anti-corruption and how the agency was the program was formed out of a need for an anti-corruption kind of mentality. And I think that what actually resonated more was this idea of accountability. So all of these things are very related and very close to each other. But I think for us, it was really interesting to see the specific wording that made a little bit more sense. And then I think the other major shift for us, which is what I just noted, usually when we talk about the program, it's for candidates looking to run for office. And in this case, we're really talking to average voters who might be really interested in making a small contribution after hearing how the program does elevate ordinary people running for office, or how the program does keep our electeds accountable to the laws and to our, New Yorkers' concerns.
Thank you. One more question for you. You mentioned that maintaining optimism about the goals and successes of the matching funds program is important and it speaks to voters. What ways beyond the taglines and the talking points, the messaging that you've already talked about, will your team maintain or even grow this sense of optimism among New Yorkers?
I think that's where we have to show proof of concept. So, for example, the most diverse city council I want to say in history, but I'm not sure if that's actually correct. I know we have a really diverse city council at this moment because of the matching funds program. And I think that is proof of concept that you have a really representative city council because of matching funds. And I think anywhere we can lean into stories like that, it will show voters that we're not just optimists. We're actually making the change that they find so appealing in the program. But as a nonpartisan agency, that can be tricky to sort of tell those stories. So I think we have to be really intentional and mindful. But that to me is how you underscore that optimism. It can't just be what a great idea for democracy. We have to show that it works.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, can I just follow up on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as a nonpartisan body, the other side of that is, maybe this is me, but we're living in such an age of maybe cynicism about government and partisanship, and the idea that taxpayer dollars would go to this. And it is a noble idea to have diverse representative government, but also the notion of responsive government. Like what are my tax dollars going for in terms of working for us, not me as a, self-interest, but the streets keeping clean. And that's not our job to create policy, but that's also part of this, to create a city council that works for New Yorkers. So there's also a tricky side of this, of creating a system that creates responsive government, and there's that corruption side of that, or the lack thereof. So how do you, I don't know if there's a question in there, but how do you steer clear of getting involved in the policy partisan side of that? Because I think that's what people are looking for as well, is not only representation in terms of they look like us, but they respond to our needs. Is that a question in there? You know what I'm getting at?
I certainly know what you're getting at, and I'm not sure I have a fully fledged answer for that one yet. It does get very tricky for us. We do talk about the issues, though. We have surveyed New Yorkers in our voter guide to talk about the top 8 issues for New Yorkers. So I think we can definitely talk a lot about what matters to New York City voters. It does get hard to say like a certain candidate or other is actually paying attention to those issues more than another one. But I think by highlighting the issues that are really important and tying that back to small dollar contributions and the matching funds and voting, I think we can tell a really persuasive story that does keep us in alignment with our nonpartisan agenda mandate.
Thank you, Alyssa, so much for your presentation tonight, and also for your leadership, the Campaign Finance Board, in this work. And thank you, Danielle and Christopher, for your questions, comments, questions kind of folded into comments. And I'm ready to move us on to the next agenda item. I want to introduce our next speaker, Ali Swatek. She's Director of Policy and Research at the Campaign Finance Board. She's going to dig deeper into research on the matching funds program that her team will be conducting along with our partners at the Center for Civic Design. Ali, welcome.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Chris. Hi, Danielle. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I'm going to piggyback off of Alyssa's awesome presentation on our marketing and ads research and talk about the Center for Civic Design and our matching funds user testing. But first things first, I'm our Director of Policy and Research. I'm a white woman with brown hair and brown eyes. I'm wearing a gold shirt and maroon glasses. My background is blue with a yellow NYC Votes logo. So first thing first, I just want to say, sorry, next slide. I forgot I'm not advancing my own slides. So we're working in partnership with the Center for Civic Design to conduct user testing. It hasn't happened yet. It's going to take place throughout February and March of this year. I will just give you some background on who this is on the next slide. The Center for Civic Design is someone who we've worked with before. In their own words, they bring together, sorry, next slide. They bring together design and research skills in plain language, information design, language access, accessibility, and voter research. They do that through conducting usability testing. They've worked with state and local election offices in 41 states to improve their elections materials. And we actually worked with them in 2020 to take a look at our ranked choice voting education and outreach materials. We were just a bit uncertain how to present those to voters, and they did an amazing job taking the basic messaging that we wanted to convey and explaining what voters found confusing about it, what they needed to know more about. So they use their skills, and this is in their own words, to invite every eligible voter to participate and rebuild confidence in democratic elections. So that's a big, tall order, but I guess we're having a lot of those types of conversations tonight. Next slide, please. So what is user testing? It's really basic. It's just observing voters interacting with our materials and asking them how they can be improved. Like I said, the Center for Civic Design kind of drills down into what do you find confusing about this? What's the best way to explain this? In your own words, how would you explain this to someone who you know, who wants to know more information about something like the Matching Funds program? And so by doing this in kind of a like almost like a mini focus group, it's like individual on a one-on-one basis, they can ask questions that really drill down into what's confusing to voters and get past that point of not understanding that we kind of saw in Alyssa's survey results. Next slide. So what is our goal? Our strategic plan goal is that 75% of voters find our new matching funds materials to be relevant, helpful, and accessible. So Alyssa already told you about our goal to increase positive perception of the matching funds program. This next goal builds off that a bit by challenging us to evaluate whether the voters who we do reach think that our materials are good, basically, in short. Next slide. So how are we going to do that? Similar to our 2020 research on, user testing research on ranked choice voting, we're planning on using something similar to the bite, snack, meal levels of information conveyance that the Center for Civic Design put together for that ranked choice voting research. So the bite is something like the advertising that Alyssa's team is putting together that kind of draws people in to get more curious about something. In some cases, the bite can also suffice to be enough for most people. So what we saw for ranked choice voting is like 50% of people thought the bite was good enough information for them. They weren't interested in hearing more about the snack, which was why are we using ranked choice voting? How did this get enacted? Or the meal, which is like, this is how the votes are literally counted. So Center for Civic Design is going to do the same type of approach for the matching funds program. So again, the bite is what Alyssa's team is proposing. The snack might get into more details about people's current understanding. What do voters already know about campaign finance or think matching funds might be? What words would they use to talk about it so that it might be helpful in communication to kind of get someone to the next level of understanding for what we're talking about. The meal would be maybe someone who wants to take a deep dive on our website and go through all of the follow the money information that shows what every single candidate has received from every contributor. So we're also going to be thinking about creative presentation of this information. How do voters react to the proposed messages and the visual presentation plan for the campaign? That's going to include things like the ad copy that that will be kind of rolling out through Alyssa's team, as well as our training slides that go into greater detail when we present to partners or other audiences that our partnerships and outreach team work with, as well as our website, which exists to kind of go a little bit deeper and also direct people to kind of do their own research in some way. Again, like I was saying with the follow the money resource, that's definitely the deepest dive you can take into campaign financing. And then the last piece we're going to research is, what do voters want to know about matching funds? How do they react to a first draft sketch of a web page written to be the snack answering those questions? Once we have these kind of questions nailed down, it'll be informative to us in taking those things back and formulating things like one-pagers that kind of describe the program in a little bit more detail, kind of make people intrigued enough to go to the website, that sort of thing. Next slide, please. Okay, so how are we actually going to conduct this research? Great question. Sessions will include semi-structured interviews and participant activities. The goal is to gain insights that will help make the communication materials more effective. We're also going to be asking about the values or impact effective messages need to communicate to people, the words or concepts that resonated with participants, and how participants built their understanding and the questions that they ask. So it's about 45 minutes long. So they actually do get into some pretty detailed conversations about how people are perceiving the materials that we're delivering. They even get into such depth as like what parts of the website they look at first and what kind of journey they go on as they're looking for more information about a topic. Next slide, please. So we're doing 2 rounds of this user testing, and something I should have mentioned on the last slide is there's not that many participants because it is so in-depth. So there's about 20 participants per round. Our first round is English only, oversampling the youth population. Alyssa kind of shouted out the youth who participated in the survey, and since that's an area of importance and targeting for our voter engagement efforts, we also want to focus on that for our matching funds education. And those first rounds are also taking place virtually because we heard resoundingly that youth participants would be much more comfortable doing something like this online. Our second round is going to be for Spanish, Mandarin, and Cantonese language speakers. It'll be a mix of virtual and pre-scheduled in-person sessions, and it might also include 1 to 2 days at a community center. We haven't yet determined what that's going to look like since it's not happening until the end of March. Next slide, please. So participants in recruitment, they'll reflect the diversity of communities in New York, of course. We want to make sure that we're speaking to folks who are from all over New York. So we want geographic diversity. We also want demographic diversity. And like I mentioned, there's going to be only 10 to 12 participants in each round of testing. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is a very slimmed down timeline. So reminder, the first round is English only, oversampling youth. Second round is Spanish, Mandarin, and Cantonese speakers. From January 20th to February 6th, we're doing our first round of testing planning. February 17th to 28th, we're doing our first round of testing, and that's when the actual user testing interviews will take place. March 3rd to the 14th is the second round of testing planning stage, and then concurrently, we will also receive the final report of our first round of testing and begin the second round of testing, March 17th to the 28th. April 11th is when we're targeting a final report for this second round of testing with Spanish, Mandarin, and Cantonese speakers. Next slide. Oh, I think that's my last slide. It is. Thank you so much for letting me present on this. We're really excited to do user testing. I haven't sat in on them in a really long time, but they're always really, really interesting and definitely bring greater insights to your work, especially since we're really in the weeds most of the time when we talk about these things.
Thank
Happy
you.
to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Ali. I'm going to begin by inviting Christopher and Danielle, our 2 VAC members, to ask any questions if you've got them. Oh, Danielle, you are muted.
Good. I'm so sorry.
There we go.
I don't really have any I'll start over. I don't really have any questions, but I just want to say that again, just like Alyssa's presentation, Ali's presentation was excellent. Ali has come to speak to one of the outside organizations I work with, and the staff at the VAC always does a phenomenal job. And it's just a pleasure to hear from you. The common sense and the insight is just so valuable. So again, no questions, but just want to thank you publicly. I mean, we've had 40 people online and it's just been great. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. Christopher, do you have anything?
Well, I'll second that, certainly, Ali. And without like going into detail, you clearly are following the methodology that you did with ranked choice voting. Obviously, that was a success. You felt. Could you just say a little more about that? About why you chose to follow the same methodology, and I know you did a presentation on that. What it was a couple of years ago now, but just kind of flesh that out just a little bit, if you could, like why follow the same line of thinking and methodological reasoning when it comes to the the funding.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that question. It's good to see you guys also. Thank you for the
Likewise.
compliments. So I think what was surprising to me about the ranked choice voting research, and I had at that point been very in the weeds talking about ranked choice voting, when you're listening to folks who work in political spaces, the questions that they were asking about ranked choice voting and the questions that they ask me about the matching funds program are so different from how actual people are engaging in things like filling out the ballot, understanding what ranking someone second means versus ranking someone first. Their questions tend to be more in depth. They're also definitely politically minded, which I think is good to mention. Someone who is really involved in politics might have a different understanding of the matching funds program, whether positive or negative, than a voter just on the street does. So I think it's important. The main takeaway for me was how important it is to kind of emphasize the simplicity of your messaging. Most people just want to know what the thing is, how they can use it, and why it matters to them. They're not super interested in knowing where they can go to get the most information possible. That's something that for the most part, like very politically involved individuals are interested in. And I'll say that the politically involved individuals, especially for the matching funds program, are often the loudest voices. So we always want to kind of balance out that interest in how we explain things and make it accessible, make sure it's relevant for folks as well, just like our goal has in mind. And that means everybody, not just the people who are being the loudest and asking us somehow get my email and ask me questions over email.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Allie, both for your presentation and for your leadership in this work. And thank you, Christopher and Danielle, for your comments and questions. We're going to move to our final speaker this evening, who is Alex Matthews. Alex is Senior Candidate Services Liaison, who will give us some insight into how our candidate services team makes it easier for more New Yorkers to run for office and participate in the matching funds program. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Paul, and good evening, everyone. As Paul mentioned, my name is Alex Matthews. I'm a Senior Candidate Services Liaison in the Candidate Services Unit at the New York City Campaign Finance Board. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a white woman with brown hair, wearing a navy blazer and a white shirt, and I have a bright yellow background with a blue NYC Votes logo. And tonight I'm really pleased to be able to share a bit of an overview of the Candidate Services Unit's work, making it easier for New Yorkers to run for office and participate in the Matching Funds program. Currently, there are 240 candidates registered with the Campaign Finance Board for the 2025 citywide elections. And of those candidates, 228, or 95% roughly, are participants in our Matching Funds program. There are also 2 ongoing special election cycles, so suffice to say the election year is really in full swing for our team. And to kick off this presentation, I want to share a clip from a new video we've just launched for all candidates running or considering running for one of the offices covered by the Campaign Finance Act: mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council member. So we will just check out about the first minute or so of this video.
Hello, New Yorker, and not just any New Yorker. Hello, New Yorker looking to make a difference. This is the step-by-step guide to help explain how to run for office in New York City. Of course, if you're watching this video, there's a good chance you've already done step 1. But crossing the first one off right away always feels good. The first step? Decide to run. To do that, you want to make sure you're where you need to be. Running for mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, or city council, you are in the right place. Have you considered why you're running and articulated that into a platform or message? Finally, and most importantly, are you ready to help, answer to, and represent the public? Great, you're ready to run. Step 2, get support. Most likely, you're starting to be aware of how much of your time this undertaking will require. It's about as much as a full-time job. That'll be true for your treasurer too. So be sure to surround yourself with a strong network of support. Don't worry, that support includes us. Once you're all set up, you'll have your own dedicated liaison at the Campaign Finance Board. Step 3.
Great, thank you. So this is just a little sneak peek of our first video. It is the first in a series of informational videos we're producing for campaigns. If you're interested in viewing the entire video, you can find it on the Campaign Finance Board YouTube channel or our website, nyccfb.info. And later this year, we will also be releasing more instructional videos on other topics geared towards campaigns. These videos are a newer initiative of the Candidate Services Unit, and we also have many other resources available to candidates and their staff to help them navigate the process of running for office and stay in compliance with campaign finance regulations. For example, after registering with the CFB, every campaign is assigned a dedicated candidate services liaison, like me, who's available to assist them throughout the election cycle and into the post-election period. Liaisons will regularly communicate with campaigns to remind them about important deadlines, help them navigate our online financial disclosure platform, and generally just serve as a one-stop shop on all questions related to public funds eligibility and overall campaign finance requirements. We're of course available by email and phone, and campaigns can also schedule in-person or virtual meetings with us at their convenience. The Candidate Services Unit also offers a number of trainings to candidates and their staff. While all campaigns are legally required to complete a compliance training on campaign finance laws and campaign finance board rules, and a training on the web-based application used to manage and disclose financial activity, we also have several other optional trainings. For instance, our new to the CFB training is a great place to start for first-time candidates and campaign staff. It really provides a general overview of all of the expectations and demands of running for office in New York City. We also offer trainings on both the pre- and post-election audit processes, which help campaigns understand different audit requests they might receive and how to respond. And American Sign Language interpretation and live captioning services are available for all of our trainings. In addition to those trainings, we have a number of helpful online resources on the Campaign Finance Board website, including the Campaign Finance Handbook, which is a plain language compliance guide published for campaigns every election cycle. Our website has many other resources that will come in handy throughout an election cycle, like guidance on public funds payments, templates for campaign-related documentation, and checklists candidates and treasurers can review before submitting their financial activity to the CFB. And for many resources on our website, we have translations available in 14 languages. One online resource available to all campaigns registered with the CFB is the Contribute credit card platform, which is at contribute.nycvotes.org. And we're sharing a screen share of that website right now. So this is a credit card platform we created for campaigns to simplify the process of collecting and reporting credit card contributions. Using Contribute is completely optional, but the main benefit for campaigns is that it's compatible with the CFB's financial reporting application. So campaigns can transfer their contribution data from Contribute to the reporting app just with the click of a button, which saves them a lot of time in the long run when they're busy running their campaigns. All campaigns registered with the CFB have access to this platform, and they can sign up right at that login link, on the top right corner, thank you. They can also learn more about the platform by clicking on some Contribute. This is where we log in. Thanks, Sarah. That's where a new campaign would go to create an account. And then all the way at the bottom of the page, there's a link to some frequently asked questions. Right there, our Contribute FAQs, which is a helpful resource for campaigns. It kind of provides instructions on how to get started on the site, how to collect contributions, and just other helpful things to know. And there's also FAQs for contributors. So far for the 2025 election cycle, over 75% of registered campaigns are fundraising using Contribute, and candidates have raised over $6.5 million on the platform so far. And before I wrap up, I just want to note that our candidate services team at the CFB is always seeking feedback from campaigns. We survey campaigns on different topics throughout the election cycle to learn about their experience running for office and ask them what we can be doing better to support them. Additionally, for anyone considering running for office in New York City and not sure where to start, you can always email us at candidateservices@nyccfb.info or call us here at the office, and we'll put you in touch with a candidate services liaison who will be able to help. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you for your time. I'll pass it back to Paul.
Thank you so much, Alex. As we approach the end of our meeting, I'm going to once again invite Christopher and Danielle if you have any questions or comments for Alex.
So at the risk of sounding like a broken record, thank you, Alex, for all the work you did. The research that you all do and the way you present is really clear and succinct and provides everybody online with exactly what they need to know. And we've had no drop off with the number of people online either. So that should tell you that everything I'm saying is true.
Broken record ditto. And again, the long view of this, having worked in the campaign finance on the other side a long time ago, just watching the ease of the system, or from a candidate's perspective, it has gotten so much more user-friendly over the time that in the lifespan of the campaign finance system. And it's been great to watch it become what it is. And the website is really user-friendly. So kudos and great work, Alex, and the rest of the team.
Thank you. So I want to close this out by once again thanking our speakers, Alex, as well as Allie and Alyssa. I want to thank you, Christopher and Danielle, our VAC members present this evening, and for everyone who tuned in, for all of our attendees for being part of this meeting tonight. I'm proud to work alongside all of you. I'm proud of the work that we do at the Campaign Finance Board and through New York City Votes, especially with our matching funds program, to make our city's democracy more transparent and equitable. If you have any questions, you can send them to press@nyccfb.info. And otherwise, I'm just going to wish you all a great evening. Thank you so much.